Hey, so this is another video in the series for the 1999 Sportsman 500. I'm going to take the plastics off this thing completely, and it's going to make everything that I'm going to do to it a lot easier. And I've already removed all the screws and just about had it off, but then I put it back together without the screws just to show you how quick and in what order I did it, how quick it can be done. The final piece, which is basically the fenders and the gas tank cover, might be a little difficult for me to wrestle off by myself, but I'm gonna go for it. If you got two people, I think it'll be really easy to get that last piece off. But anyways, I'll explain to you what order I took things off. Yeah, you'll notice I'm not removing screws because who needs to watch that? I'll tell you where they are and how many there are. That should cover it for you. So the first thing I do is pop off the two side panels, or I'm sorry, the seat, then the two side panels. So seat, handle back here, everybody knows that, take that off. And that aside, and the side panels you have to wrestle off a little bit, you know that. I'm sure if you take them off for a boot, then out. Same on the other side. Those are off. Then I took off 4 screws here, 1, 2, 3, 4, lifted that off. 1, 2, 3, 4, took this off. Get my wrench, I hit it for myself. There it is. I think I like tightened a couple of these back on. Some of the stuff wouldn't stay in place, you know, for a demo without putting the screws partly back on. So that's off. Took off the back rack as well. 1, 2, 3, 4 screws, and that's off. Then I started working all the screws around the plastics. I disconnected the 4 screws from each foot platform. 4 screws with nuts on the bottom on both sides. Took this out. There was a screw here and a screw here. So I think one thing I haven't done yet is I still need to take this plate off in order to wrestle this around that now that I look at it. I did not get that off, and that's going to be 4 bolts there. So screw on each side of the gas tank, under the seat, screw, another screw over here. There appears to be a screw right across from that, but I don't see what was ever hooked to that. I don't know if it's been modified to get the battery in and out easier or something, but I'll have to look into the owner's manual and see what that's supposed to be. And then 2 screws on the back, unplugged the tail light, and this whole thing is loose now, and I just got to wrestle it out of there. I'm thinking I might have to take this off and this off, and I'll do that and not put you through having to watch me wrestle the bolts off, and I'll just start recording again once I figure those out. Alright, so just took me a couple of minutes there. These I was actually able to flex enough to push under the rack and up and over, so that's totally free back here now. 2 bolts on each side on this one, and depending on what kind of winch mount you have, yours might be slightly different, but I had 2 bolts on each side, and disconnect the light bulb wire from the back of your lights, and that's off. So now, all that's really left is getting this up and over the headlight situation, and I'm not sure. I think 2 people would probably be easier to do that. I need to take my gas cap off too in order to free that piece up. So I'm going to monkey with that a little bit, try to figure out the best way to lift that up and off. You certainly could, your foot platform here, there's of course screws on the back and around this flare. You take that piece out, and then this is separate and this back one is separate. And you're good to go then. You can just go boop. But I'm just trying to see if I can pop it off all as one. It might not be the best way to go. We'll find out here in a second. Alright, so I ended up taking out a screw here, 2 here, and 1 under there on each side. And I'm just going to lift the back off with the footrest. it's just going to be less awkward. And then I can wrestle the front off. Not quite sure yet how the front's going to come off, but I'm going to mess with it a little bit. I don't know if I need to take this cluster off, these plastic pieces here. I think I do. But I mean, that thing's pretty, a lot of stuff immediately becomes accessible once you do that. You know, you can totally get at your belt situation, battery, shocks. Sorry for the glare, it's kind of afternoon. I'm wrestling a tripod here. Exhaust is right there. Now I can get at the components for the rear brake, which I plan to do. You know, you got parts all right there, all your linkage and your secondary brake cylinder. I can take that cover off on the side to get at the pull start. You know, just evaluate everything while I'm in there. So, you know, I got enough to do on here that taking the plastics off is going to certainly warrant itself. I certainly wouldn't do this just for an oil change or or to change a belt, but it sure is going to make it all easier while I got off there. So I'm going to see what I need to do next about taking that front piece off. I think I'm probably going to have to take off the headlight pieces, and then I need to do that anyways to get the speedometer out, so that'll be kind of a step ahead there. I realize that looks like a bit of a mess, but so what I did was I took the top cover of the, you know, speedometer, instrument cluster, whatever you want to call it, off. There's 3 screws in the back, 2 screws on the bottom on the front. Once I was able to take the top off, the green top separated from kind of like a clamshell, that then reveals all the electronics and the gooseneck for the handlebars. I then took a wrench holding the nut underneath the gooseneck and a socket on top and took out 4 bolts to release the handlebars. Then I was able to rotate them 90 degrees, and then I pretty much could wrestle it. Well, not really wrestle, but maneuver, I guess is a better word. Maneuver it off of there, and it's pretty much off now. So I just that like that, and that is off. So now it just looks like a wreck, like it survived a really bad roll, but it was still systematic getting it off there, and it didn't take me very long. You know, I don't know, maybe a half hour of working at the pace at which I explained it to you guys at. I just didn't show you taking all the nuts and bolts off. So I'll put the handlebars back on, and then, you know, cluster back on. I do need to address that speedometer, so I might pop that out while I have it apart. But then, you know, everything is pretty, let me just take off the tripod here for a second. Now that all the plastics are off, you can, you know, clearly see everything has become nice and accessible. I mean, I know you don't always have the luxury to do this, you know, and now it looks like a serious project bike, but just by taking off the plastics, but I can get at everything now, you know, all the basic stuff. You know, maybe that's not a fair way to demonstrate some of the stuff for people that might be looking for specifics like a belt change or an oil change, or because, you know, you're not going to take your plastics off for that. Although you could, you know, if you're parking it over the winter and you're winterizing it, you could pop them off and then over the winter just kind of plug away at it, and that's kind of what I'm doing basically, you know, just putting it away putting it aside for the season, and my key, I'm gonna go through it. So, and then pop the plastics back on. I just thought I'd share that with you guys, see if it's of any help to anybody, because, you know, it's not something that you do very often, not something I certainly do very often. There's never really been a need for me to dig into one that deep. I just kind of was always focusing my efforts on this part or that part, and you just kind of dug in and worked around stuff. And so that's what a 1999 Polaris Sportsman 500 looks like without the plastics on. So anyways, I'll make video of the stuff I do as I go along here, maybe some of the basic stuff too, just because you have a better view of it and things, just instead of watching somebody crawl underneath something and, and maybe a close-up of the wrench on the nut, you can see it from a little different angle, and maybe some things will make more sense to you, being able to see it all dissected like this. So I'm gonna just look things over here for a little bit, but I will see you on the next one. I plan to do a series of these for this particular model, since I am diving so deep. So hope it's helpful. See you on the next one.